Good evening, guys. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So, is there any doubt from the previous chapter that we have completed? So, can I take it as no?
Yes, sir. It's clear, sir.
So, we are good to go with the next chapter, right? So, what is the name of the next chapter? Anybody? Those who have gone through the textbook.
Laws of motion.
Yes. So, the next chapter that you are going to see is called as the laws of motion. Right? So, if you backtrace, chapter 3, we dealt with motion in one dimension. Accepted? Similarly, chapter 4, we dealt with motion in two dimension. Right? Now, chapter 5 uses the word laws of motion. Here also we are seeing the word motion. Right? Then what do you think is going to be different compared to the previous two chapters that we have? Here we are again learning about motion.
Sir, here we learn also about the cause of motion.
Yes. If you see in these two chapters fall under the branch of physics called as kinematics. Means we are concerned about the motion, but we never raise the question about what is the cause of the motion. Right? Whereas in laws of motion, it falls under a branch of physics called as dynamics. So in dynamics, we are always concerned about the motion along with the cause of it. Okay. So first write down this term. Dynamics. It is a branch of physics. It is a branch of physics which deals with the motion of an object. Along with the cause of the motion. CAUSE, along with the cause of the motion. Right?
Sir, could you
So
repeat
basically, sure. From where? You want me to repeat the whole sentence or?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So dynamics is a branch of physics which deals with the motion along with the cause of the motion. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Now see, I'll try to simplify this chapter, guys. Okay. So in this chapter, the trickiest part is solving problems. Okay. That is anyways at the end part. But for you to have a clear-cut knowledge of why this thing is happening a problem, there are certain basics that you need to be strong with. Okay, I'll try to make it simple. If there is any doubt, please get it clarified. Okay. So the heading is laws of motion. Right. I don't think this is the first time you guys are hearing this word in your life. You would have already studied about it. Can you tell me when did you study this? You would have already learned this. But maybe
Ninth
not
standard.
I
on ninth
understand.
grade, you would have learned something called as Newton's laws of motion. Right. So here, if you see, when we say dynamics is concerned about the motion plus cause. So I'll try to analyze it in this way. Okay, I look at it like this. When I see the word motion, I can understand it is a reverse of rest. Means motion has something to do with the change in position of an object with respect to time. So if I am able to put a statement like this, change in position with respect to time, can I say that the object is in motion? Obviously, right? Now, if I ask what is the cause due to which the object is actually able to move? What will you say? So who is responsible means we told we are concerned about cause. Now tell me, if an object is at rest, who is responsible for bringing the object into motion? If suppose an object is already in motion, who is responsible for the object to bring it to rest?
Any other external force can act on it.
It is any other external force. Okay, to add
External
one more.
unbalanced force.
Yes, that is what I was expecting. It is not only external force, you need an external unbalanced force acting on the system. So basically, when you talk about force, there are balanced and unbalanced force. So balanced force is going to keep the object either at rest or it will make the object move with uniform motion. Right? It is, but it is the unbalanced force which will be able to put the object into the right motion or bring it to rest if it is already in motion. Since we use the word force here, first we need to understand what is force. Like the first term that we are going to define here is force. Can someone tell me what is force?
That's the product of mass and acceleration.
That is Newton's second law. That too, Newton's second law is not. Yes, it's a push or pull. Why do we do this? To create or I can say to create a motion in object or to bring it to rest. Right? So force is basically defined as push or pull in terms of mechanics. In terms of gravitation, you would have learned this already, right? The planets experience an attractive force. So wherever you see attraction, it is a pull. Wherever you see repulsion, it is a push. So something like this. As of now, let's keep it simple. A push or a pull acting on an object is generally called as force. Okay, accepted. So if that is the case, the next question that we are supposed to ask, if force is a physical quantity, does it have direction associated with it? Does force have a direction associated with it?
No, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Sorry. Force has.
Force has direction. So what type of a physical quantity it is?
Vector quantity.
It is a vector quantity. Okay, but for you to call any quantity as vector, what are all the conditions that need to get satisfied? It should have a magnitude, direction, and the most important is it should be able to follow the vector
laws of addition.
So force does follow the vector laws of addition. That is the reason why you have something called as balanced and unbalanced force. Okay. Now, so based on certain observations, there are certain laws that are proposed. So now we will see the laws of motion. And what is the first law that is proposed? So I will call it as Newton's first law. Everybody knows, right? It was Isaac Newton who proposed all these laws. So what does Newton's first law state? Any object continues to be what?
In the state of rest or
Uniform motion
uniform
or
motion.
In the state of rest. When I say rest, what comes to your mind? Velocity is 0, acceleration is 0, or uniform motion. So when I say uniform motion, what comes to your mind? U is constant and
Zero acceleration.
Acceleration is 0. Okay, or uniform motion until an unbalanced force is acting on it. Okay. So any object continues to be in the state of rest or uniform motion until an unbalanced force is acting on it.
Sir,
Tell me.
Sir, you said the acceleration is 0. So suppose an object is at rest on Earth, but still gravity is acting on it, right?
Yes, gravity is acting. It is not going to move, right? but it is still at rest.
So, but there is a certain acceleration, right?
Okay, then see, no. Acceleration will come only when the velocity is changing with respect to time. So this is the surface of Earth, and let's say the object is resting on it. Your question is gravity is acting in the downward direction. Okay, accepted. But this gravity is balanced by a normal reaction. What did I say? Until there is an unbalanced force acting on the system. So here mg is balanced by a reaction force offered by the surface of the Earth on the object. Correct? Hence, it is not accelerating. In this direction, if I ask you acceleration, how much will you say? It is still 0. You're able to understand?
Yes, sir.
Yes? Yeah. Okay, for people who are wondering what is N is called as normal reaction. You will learn about all those things. Don't worry. Okay. So as of now, I hope everyone is clear with the statement. Right. So can you give me an example where an object is at rest and you give me a real-time example, no? which you see in day-to-day life.
Books placed at the shelf.
Okay. Or you can take a table and a book placed on top of it. Right. The book is going to be at rest till you apply a force on it. Right. Suppose the book is lying on a table, weight is acting downwards, and there is a reaction force acting exactly in the opposite direction. Hence, it is at rest. So, if you want to lift that book, what are you going to do? You will apply a force greater than mg so that you are able to create an unbalance in the whole system and take the book up. Okay. So, that is the example of an object lying at rest till it is put into motion. Give me another example where the object is in uniform motion and you want the object to get stopped. If I think of a block, okay, I'll take a block. If I have a block and if I say this block is given a velocity v in the horizontal direction and the surface on which it is moving is assumed to be 100% smooth. See, 100% ideal smooth surface, you will not find it. But if I assume it to be 100% smooth, what do you think will happen to this object? If you give a velocity to this object, theoretically, what do you think should happen? The object should be able to continue in the same motion with the same velocity. But what will happen in reality? The object will come to rest due to
Friction.
yes. So friction will be a force which will act in the opposite direction and try to bring the object to rest. So if you observe, these are the properties where an object continues to stay at rest continuously or it is in continuous motion is a property of an object which is called as inertia. Okay. So what do you mean by inertia? Anybody who wants to try? I'm sure you would have heard this word also.
Sir, it is the tendency to remain in state of rest or in uniform motion.
Very good. It is the tendency, it is a natural tendency. I can add the word natural. It is a natural, or to give a more technical name, it is called as intrinsic. Intrinsic means, so listen to this word. You just have this word in your mind. You need not write it exactly in the book. Okay. So natural or intrinsic means the same. So natural tendency or property of a material, natural tendency of a material to do what? To stay at rest or in uniform motion is what we call it as inertia. So if I say an object has a natural tendency of staying at rest or in uniform motion, can I say that this law is also law of inertia? So what I'm trying to say here is Newton's first law is also called as the law of inertia.
Sir, I just want to copy it, sir. 1 second.
Sure. From where? Here, this part.
In only Newton's first law of motion.
Okay.
Sir, but then the inertia is no longer applicable if the object starts moving, right?
No. If the object starts moving and it is able to move for a continuous, if it is able to move with uniform velocity, then still it has inertia associated.
Okay, sir.
Yes, sir.
Done. Now the question is, I have a question. What is the property of a material responsible for inertia? What is the natural property of the material which is responsible for inertia?
It's
Sir.
mass.
Mass.
It is the mass. Means more is the mass of the material, then more will be its inertia. So can I say that inertia is equal to mass? Can I say something like this?
Yes, sir.
I cannot say. Because inertia is a property, mass is a physical quantity which can be measured. Okay. So inertia is only a tendency which is used to observe. It cannot be measured. So generally, if you want to measure, or if you want to tell which object has more inertia, measure of inertia is given by mass. Okay. So the meaning of the statement is, more is the mass, more is the inertia. That's all you can say. Suppose the mass of the object is 5 kilogram, you cannot say inertia is 5 kilogram. No. So inertia is used only to do a comparative study. If I give you two objects in your hand and ask you which object has more inertia, then what you do is, first thing you do is you measure the mass of both the objects, and whichever object has greater mass, you will say this object has greater inertia. That's it.
Sir, velocity is also responsible, right?
No. It is only the mass. It is only the mass that is responsible for the object. Okay. The reason why I understand why you think uniform motion. No, that is not the thing. So when an object is in uniform motion, you need to understand the concept of momentum for you to understand why velocity is not responsible. Okay. So as of now, accept it that inertia is the measure of the measure of inertia is given only by mass. Okay. Velocity.
Sir, I have a doubt, sir.
Tell me.
Sir, if two objects have same mass and are moving at different velocities, then their inertia is also same?
Yeah, you can say they have the same inertia, yes. Then the parameter that will be different in both the cases is linear momentum. Okay.
Okay, sir.
I hope you guys made a note of this point, right? So what are all the points that we have seen now? We have seen what is force, right? Then we saw the Newton's first law, which is also called as the law of inertia. Then we saw what is inertia. Then we saw what is the measure of inertia, right? The next term that we are going to see is concept called as linear momentum. You would have learned this concept in your 9th standard as momentum, but to be more specific, it is actually called as linear momentum, and it is represented by the symbol small p. Okay, in mechanics generally small p is used for linear momentum, capital P is used for power. Okay, can someone define what is linear momentum? Let's see how many of you know this.
Sir, it is the product of mass and velocity.
Yes. So let's try to understand. If any object is taken, that object will have mass associated with it. Right? If that object which has mass is given a linear velocity, then if you are able to define the product of mass and velocity, then this combined physical quantities in terms of product is what we call it as linear momentum. So let's write down the definition of linear momentum. Please write it down, please. Product of mass of an object, product of mass of an object and its velocity during motion, and its velocity during the motion is called linear momentum. Okay. So I hope this point is registered in your mind. So whenever I told you already, whenever you are learning about any physical quantity, right, you need to learn some other things other than the definition also. What is it? First is you need to learn the mathematical expression that it has. So P is written as m into v, where m stands for mass and v stands for the velocity. Okay, accepted. Next. What type of a physical quantity is it? Is it a scalar quantity or a vector quantity?
Vector quantity.
It's a vector quantity. So what will be the direction? So if I ask you what is the direction of linear momentum of an object, who will decide the direction of it?
Velocity.
Always, yes,
Velocity.
is decided by the direction of velocity. Because mass is always positive, mass cannot be negative. So if velocity is in the forward direction, momentum is also in the forward direction. Velocity is in negative direction, momentum is also in the negative direction. Okay. Now what is going to be the SI unit for it?
Kilogram
Yes.
meter per second.
Very good. Kilogram meter per second. And CGS unit is obviously going to be gram centimeter per second. So what is the relation between 1 kilogram meter per second and 1 gram centimeter per second? 2 minutes time. Do it fast and tell me.
Ten to the power 5.
That's right. So it is 10 power 5 gram centimeter per second, because 1 kilogram is 10 power 3 gram. 1 kilogram is 10 power 3 grams and 1 meter is 10 power 2 centimeter. So it will be 10 power 5 gram centimeter per second. Right. So what is going to be the dimensional formula? M L T minus 1. So there is a dimensional formula. Right. So this is all about linear momentum, guys. Now, based on this, let's see what does Newton's second law has to tell us. Anybody with a statement? So Newton's second law also speaks about force only. What is it?
So the force is directly proportional to the product of mass and velocity.
Product of mass and not exactly.
Mass and acceleration, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that is a derived value actually. It is not the way the statement was given. Okay. It is something stated like this. Force is directly proportional. Tell me. To
rate of change of momentum.
Rate of change of linear momentum. So this is the statement given. Force is directly proportional to the rate of change of linear momentum. Okay. So F is observed to be directly proportional to delta P divided by delta T. You guys know what is the meaning of rate. Rate is something that changes with respect to time. And from here we get F is equal to K into delta P divided by delta T. And experimentally it was found out that K is equal to 1. And when you substitute k is equal to 1 here, you get F is equal to delta P by delta T. Actually, you can state it like this also. Force is equal to the rate of change of linear momentum. Okay. If the mass of object is constant with respect to time. If mass of an object is constant with respect to time, then I can write F is equal to mv minus mu divided by delta T. If I take m outside, it will become delta V by delta T, because V minus U is delta V and delta T is written as such. So m into, what is delta V by delta T, guys? M into,
Acceleration.
now you got y F is equal to ma.
Sir, can you please scroll up?
Sure.
Sir, from the derivation, sir.
Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Let me know once you're done.
Done, sir.
Okay. Now, what is going to be the SI unit of this? So, what is the SI unit of force? Kilogram meter per second square. CGS unit is gram centimeter per second square. This kilogram meter per second square is collectively called as what?
Sir,
Sorry, please continue.
Newton, sir.
It's called Newton, correct. So kilogram meters per second square is called as Newton. Since it's a name of a scientist, it is written as capital N. And gram centimeter per second square is called as dyne. So 1 Newton is equal to how many dynes? It will be 10 power 5 dyne. Clear, guys?
Sir, can you scroll up a bit?
Sure. Any doubt? Is there
Sir,
any
I'm
doubt
just,
you have? Copying it?
copying. Yes.
Okay. Guys, am I clear till this point? These are all very basic steps. Am I clear?
Yes, sir.
Sir.
Right?
Yes, sir, you can scroll down.
So there is a case, and obviously the dimensional formula is going to be MLT minus 2. Right? This is also known to us. We have seen this in units and measurements itself. Now, let's see the next term, that is called as impulse. So what do you mean by impulse? I'll show you a diagram from your textbook.
Sir, is it like a wave, sir?
See. So suppose a cricket ball is falling in the hand. Have you ever observed? So when the fielder is catching the ball, does he catch the ball and hold it at the same place? Does he keep his hand at the same place? Or
It
will he
moves
drag it?
backwards and then
Will he
comes.
drag it? Yeah. Why do they do it?
Sir, to reduce the momentum.
To reduce the force that is acting, right? So generally what happens is when the ball is generally, let's say it is falling from this height, due to the height, let's talk about energies as of now, guys, okay? due to the height, it will have, let's say there is a ground, it will have a high amount of potential energy. And as it is coming closer, what will happen? The potential energy will decrease, and what will increase?
Kinetic energy.
Kinetic energy.
So kinetic energy will increase. So when kinetic energy is increasing, somebody told momentum will be more. So when I talk about momentum, let me take this as the initial time and let me take this as the final time. So during this time interval Tf minus Ti, there is a change in momentum taking place. Can I say that? Here the velocity
Yes,
is less. Here the velocity is less. Here the velocity is more. So final value is more than the initial value in the time interval Tf minus Ti. So when there is a change in momentum taking place with respect to time, can I say more amount of force is going to act on the person's hand? Are you guys able to understand the connections?
Yes, sir.
Right? When more amount of force is going to act, the reaction time which his hand or her hand is going to have is for a very small amount of time. Right? So there will be a large amount of force acting for a very small duration. Accepted? Because they will not see after time Tf, maybe in time delta T, which is a very, very small value, his hand will experience so much amount of force which he can't withstand. Right? Our strength will not be sufficient enough to oppose the force with which the ball is coming and hitting. So what we need to do is we need to give enough time to pull our hand back so that you're not having the ball completely in contact with your hand. Actually slow it down and then you slowly take it back. I hope you're able to experience what I'm trying to say. Right? Once your ball hits, its speed is going to decrease. So at the same time, to safeguard your hand, you need to slightly pull it back so that you give enough time for the force to decrease to zero. Right? So whatever is happening at this instant, what did I say is happening at this instant? The moment the ball is hitting the person's hand, what is going to happen? There is going to be a very large force acting for a small amount of time. So if you are able to calculate the force and the duration for with the small amount of time for which this force is acting, then this collective parameter is what is called as impulse. Are you able to understand? So like how...
Sir, could you repeat, sir?
I'll tell you. Just to create a similarity, like if an object has a mass and it is given a velocity, if you're able to calculate the product of these two, what do we call it as? The product of mass of an object with
Momentum.
velocity is what? We gave a term to it called as linear momentum, so that it is a universally understood language. In a similar context, with this example as reference, if you are able to calculate the force that is acting and multiply it with the duration for which it is acting, okay? Generally, it is defined like this. Large amount of force acting for a very small interval of time is what is called as impulse. Okay. So write down the definition. Large amount of force acting for a very small interval of time is called as impulse, and impulse is generally represented by the symbol J. You can use small j also. Okay. So J is given as force multiplied with delta T, where delta T is a measurable value of time, or if suppose the force itself is varying with respect to time, then you can say integral of F into dt between T1, Ti to T final, or T1 to T2 also can be taken. Okay, these two are the mathematical formulae for what? These two are the mathematical formulae for the term impulse.
Sir, why is it integral?
Sorry, why is it?
Integral.
Integral, you use it when force is a function of time. I'll give you an example. For this case alone, I'll give you an example. I'll create a question so that you'll be able to solve it. Now listen, guys. So this F, we know that F is equal to delta P divided by delta T. Correct? That's what Newton's second law told us. So if you take this delta T to the other side, F into delta T, you can call it as delta P. Right? F into delta T, you can call it as delta P. But what is it F into delta T called as? Is it not impulse? So one more definition that is given to impulse is mathematically equal to what?
Change
What
in
is delta?
momentum.
It is change in momentum. Okay. So impulse is also equal to change in momentum. What do you think is the confusion factor that will start? We told force also has change in momentum, impulse also has change in momentum. But what is the clarity we need to develop? Force is rate of change of linear momentum, means change in momentum with respect to time. That is delta P by delta T. Guys, I hope everybody is making a note of it.
Yes, sir.
Whereas impulse is only change in momentum. It does not have any time in the mathematical expression. Okay. So impulse is equal to change in momentum. If that is the case, then what will be the SI unit of it? So SI unit of impulse is Newton second.
kg meter per second.
Or it can also be kilogram meter per second because it is equal to the change in momentum. Or you can look at it in a different way. Momentum can be measured in kilogram meter per second or Newton second. Okay. So what is going to be the value of CJ's unit? It will be dyne second. I'll put a hyphen here so that you're not confused. So it is dyne second or gram centimeter per second. Okay. So what is the dimensional formula? It is MLT
minus 1.
Right. Now the question is impulse a scalar quantity or a vector quantity?
Sir, it should be a vector, right?
It should be a vector. Yes.
Vector, right.
Because impulse is equal to change in momentum. Momentum is a vector quantity. So impulse is a vector quantity. So it has magnitude and direction associated with it. Okay. Shall I move on to the next concept? Yeah, before that, I told you I'll give you a problem, right? You asked me why that integral is coming and when to use it. See, for example, let's say there is a problem. There is a force of 5 Newton acting for a time interval of 0.1 seconds. Find impulse. What will you do? F into delta t. So 5 into 0.1, it will be 0.15 Newton second. Correct?
Yes, sir.
0.5 Newton second. So we use the first formula. Whereas in the second case, what will happen is, suppose F is given as 5t square plus 2t plus 3, and find what is the change in impulse between 0 to 0.1 seconds. So here, force is a function of time. Are you guys able to understand what I mean by force is a function of time?
Yes, sir.
Then impulse will be equal to integral of f dt from 0 to 0.1 second. So it will be integral of 5t square plus 2t plus 3 dt between 0 to 0.1. So 5 into t cube by 3 plus 2 into t square by 2 plus 3 into t, all these things happening between 0 to 0.1. You substitute it, you will get the value of the answer, the impulse. In that part, I am leaving it to you. Okay. So with the current knowledge, let's try out some example problems from the textbook. Where is 5.1? There is no 5.1 at all. Okay, let's start with this 5.2.
Sir, it was there, sir.
It was there, which page?
Sir, before that, catching of the ball.
Okay, okay. So an astronaut accidentally gets separated out of a small spaceship accelerating in interstellar space at constant rate of 100 meters per second square. What is the acceleration of the astronaut at the instant after he is outside the spaceship? Assume that there is no nearby stars to exert gravitational force on him. So what will be the answer?
0.
Since there is no external force acting on the system, the acceleration is 0. That's it. So that is based on the first law of motion. It's a simple thing. One minute, guys. Let's do 5 point. There is a bullet of mass 0.04 kilogram moving with a speed of 90 meters per second. Okay, enters a heavy wooden block and is stopped after a distance of 60 centimeters. What is the average resistive force exerted by the block on the bullet? (5.2). So there is a wooden block lying here. Okay, and there is a bullet that is fired, and this bullet is fired with a speed of how much value? 90 meters per second. And mass is 0.04 kilogram and enters a heavy wooden block where it is stopped after 60 centimeter. Let's say it has traveled 60 centimeter and it has come to rest. Okay. Now what are they asking? What is the average force exerted by this block? How to solve?
Sir, using 2as is equal to v square minus u square.
So F external is equal to delta P by delta T. We can directly go with this order. Okay. So when the bullet has come to rest, okay, when the bullet has come to rest, what is its velocity?
0.
Initially, the velocity is how much? 90 meters per second. And it is able to travel 60 centimeter in how much time? We don't know. So for that, how to solve? Guys, are you able to understand what I did? Then you can use V is equal to U plus AT, but here you don't know acceleration also. So the other way to solve this problem is you can use F external is equal to mass into acceleration, because mass, you know, if you find the retardation the particle is experiencing, your work is solved. So for that, you can use V square minus U square is equal to 2 into A into S. V square is 0 square minus U square is 90 square is equal to 2 into acceleration into displacement of the particle is 60 into 10 power minus 2. 0, 0. It will go 3 times. It will go, sorry, it will go 3 times. Here it will go 2 times. This will go 45 times. So acceleration will be equal to minus 225 into 10 power 2 divided by so these many meters per second square. Is it this high value? 6750. Did I miss anything? So 45 into 3 is 135. So it will be 67.5. So it will be 6750 meter per second square. So mass of the object is 0.04 into acceleration is 6750. If you multiply both, you will get the answer. So those many newtons is the answer. Guys, am I clear?
Sir, but while taking acceleration, we shouldn't include the minus sign.
You can take it. If you take it, then you are going to say it's a retarding force. That's it. But I think the question itself asks, no, what is a resistive force? So you need not include that minus. Of course, generally, are you able to understand what I'm trying to say now? So generally, the minus sign is used to show that it is a resistive or a retarding force. Okay, here minus sign indicates that the object is retarding. Right.
Yes, sir.
So 5.3, you guys try this. The motion of a particle of mass m is described as y is equal to ut plus half gt square. Find the force acting on the particle. You can tell in one step. So s is equal to ut plus half at square. What is the acceleration of this particle? Guys, what is the acceleration of the particle?
Sir, 10.
The g. So the force experienced is equal to mg. That's it. Because F is equal to ma, acceleration is equal to g. So m into in the place of a substitute g, you will get mg as the answer.
Sir, could you show the previous problem once again?
Yeah. Done?
I have a doubt, sir.
Tell me.
Sir, in the previous problem, they are asking the retarding resistive force, right? So this is only acceleration.
Yeah. After I found the acceleration, I multiplied with the mass. No? So 0.04.
Oh, okay, sir. Got it, sir.
Okay. You try 5.4. A batsman hits a ball back, hits back a ball straight in the direction of the bowler without changing its initial speed of 12 meters per second. If the mass of the ball is 0.15 kilogram, determine the impulse imparted on the ball. So it's very simple. If the bat is like this, the object comes and hits here, it is returning back with the same velocity. So just now we saw what is impulse, guys. Impulse is equal to
Force into
change in
delta.
momentum. So change in moment, force into time, but here mass and velocity are given. Okay. So if I take the rightward direction as positive, leftward direction will be negative. So change in momentum is m into v final minus m into v initial with proper vector symbols v final minus v initial. So m is v final is how much, guys? 12 in the rightward direction. Minus is there. What is v initial? It will be minus 12. And what is the mass of the ball? It is 0.15. So this will be 0.15 into 24. How much is the answer? It will be 3.6 Newton second. Are you guys able to understand? This is actually a simple problem. Is there anyone having a doubt? See, the only doubt you can have is with direction. Most common answer that I find in the paper is 0. Because they see the magnitude and they will subtract both and they will write the answer as 0. But what will happen in reality? They get doubled. Velocities get doubled because of the change in direction that is happening. Clear, guys? So this is all about impulse.
Sir, once
and
can you
other-
again show that?
Sure.
Sir, actually here delta P is equal to MVS minus MVI. So here
Yeah,
the
please
whole
continue.
the whole quantity MV is a vector, right?
M into, no. It is only velocity that is vector. Mass is not a vector. No?
Sir, but then the product is a vector, right?
The product is a vector. So what is your doubt in that?
Shouldn't be full. The arrow should be for both, right?
Arrow should be.
For both M and V, right?
That's what the M will not have direction. No. I told you already. Go and revisit the notes video. Write down what I told with respect to momentum. Direction of momentum is decided by whom? Check your notes.
Yes, sir. I wrote.
You wrote no.
Yes, sir.
So direction of linear momentum is decided by the direction of velocity. Then why will mass have a direction associated? You should not take the mass direction. So I repeat it. Whenever you're solving a problem based on this kind of bounding aspect, like bouncing back aspect, there's actually an application of collisions, which is the last topic of this chapter. So when it comes here, right, it is coming with a momentum of how much value? 0.15 into 12, but in the leftward direction. After it hits, it's rebounding with a velocity of 0.15 into 12. So what will be the change in momentum? Change in momentum will be final minus initial. So 0.15 into 12 minus initial is 0.15 into 12 only, but with a negative sign, because they both are in opposite direction. That is the reason I added them. Okay, this is a very, very important thing in your to be kept in your mind. As I told you, many of them write the answer as 0. Don't do that mistake. Okay, so this is all about impulse and the Newton's first two laws. Okay, next class we will see Newton's third law and we'll solve some more problems that are based on this. After that, I go to another important concept called as free body diagram. Okay, any other doubt, guys? Any other doubt, guys?
Clear, sir.
Okay, we can wind up this session.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Thank you,
you,
sir.
sir.
And